this is, I think, the litmus test for anybody who is going to go to Washington, D.C. Do you know what the Great Reset is? Do you know how dangerous it is? And what are you going to do to help fight it? It is a story of real tyranny. And this is why we have so much chaos. And this is why I've said for 15 years, do not participate in anything that causes more chaos. Chaos, the solution to chaos is always tyranny. Too many chefs in the kitchen, too many people, trying to figure it out, too many voices all at once, too much plurality. Everybody's got an opinion. And you need time and you need rest and you just are exhausted. And you're exhausted with the fear of what's going on and then too many cooks in the kitchen. And it becomes collective fear. And you start to think nobody really has an answer. Nobody has an answer. This is something that Plato talked about 2,500 years ago. At times of extreme chaos, people will turn to the politician or the political party that promises to restore order. That's what's happening right now. And the chaos is going to get worse. And right now, they're ignoring the thing that really is chaotic in your life, and that is your job, your business, and inflation. How are you affording to do the things that you need to do? I guarantee you they're ignoring it now, but those same people who are ignoring it will be the ones that will come to you with a solution, and it will be a very bad solution. But that's not the way tyranny usually comes. Tyranny, when we think of tyranny, you think of Darth Vader. But that's not how tyranny comes. Usually, tyranny is pretty boring. What we want is boring. That's why people elected Joe Biden. They wanted something predictable, calm, an escape from all of the noise. And so you do that, and you give that person power. And sometimes you give them way too much power because just whatever it takes to save us. We've always known in America, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. But I think we have forgotten those things because there's a specific kind of power that leads to tyranny. It's the power that arises when the weak come together to ambush the strong. An ambush is the only tactic they have. It's an attempt to substitute violence for power. But what they don't realize is that, yes, tyranny involves one person or one party having all the power, but at the same time, tyranny stops the development of power. It stops the development of politics, which stops the development of human nature. Have you noticed that politics have really stopped and frozen in time? What you believe about Donald Trump will never change. What you believe about COVID and the vaccines will never change. Nobody is willing to change their positions because no one is looking at anything, including COVID, as anything other than political. The virus does not care who you voted for. The virus doesn't care if you're in China or you're in America. It doesn't care if it came from a lab or nature. It doesn't care. Tyranny, tyrants. The biggest problem is not their cruelty, and it's incredible cruelty. It's their efficiency and their callousness. They provide stability. They provide productivity. They provide security. And as things churn in their new world order, there's a quiet transfer of power that takes place. It's a theft. It's a heist. The power of the people is taken slowly, bit by bit, and put into the hands of a few at the state. And you don't notice it happening when it's happening. Because when we think of tyranny, again, we think of the jackbooted thugs. We don't imagine it happening bit by bit. But tyrants don't gain power on a platform that expresses contempt for freedom. Even Hitler didn't do that. And he didn't get it all at once. He took it piece by piece. And they appeal to your humanity. How did you kill all of those Jews? How did you do it? Because those people are against what we believe in. Those people are the people that have brought these problems upon us. And if we can just get them isolated, if we can just not work with them, then all of humanity is going to be okay. We're doing a service. That's how they got people to kill other people. It's only in the end do you see how horrific the idea is. Tyranny instead structures your life for you better than a democracy ever could, because a democracy is chaos. It's complicated. It requires a lot of each individual to think and to contemplate. And the power is dispersed among everybody. So nobody has power over the other person. A tyrant is like a universal remote. I mean, we just need to shut everybody up. We just got to watch this show. But before long, you start to realize the cost. Everything repeats, and this is where we're at now. It's still growing, but have you noticed how everything repeats? Everything begins to be exactly the same. Everything has become about politics and not about principles. Not about right and wrong, not about standing up and speaking out. You're not standing up with people who say we should take rights away from people who disagree with me medically. We should take their children away. 48% of Democrats who voted for Joe Biden say that you should take their freedom away if they disagree with you on social media. When the voices are snuffed out that disagree with you, what happens to diversity? Everything will be exactly the same. And individuality is completely gone. But usually tyrants, it gets worse because individuality eventually becomes a crime. It's easier under tyranny to act than to think. They want you to think. How many times have you heard, don't think, don't listen to that, don't read that? Anytime anyone has ever told me not to do something, I usually end up doing. And it's usually, I mean, in my early days, it was because that's just the kind of rebel that I was. But now it's because I know if you don't have a good reason for it, and even if you do, I'm smart enough to figure out and look at that and say, okay, I see why I shouldn't do that. But if you just blank me, tell me I can't do something, I can't read something, I can't think something, you are part of the tyranny. And the tyrant keeps speaking and acting as one. There's no protest, no city councils, no school board meetings, no discussion of any kind in the end of this. People keep their opinions private because the tyrant speaks for them. It may seem like people are still participating in public life, but really, they're only spouting slogans of the tyrant's party. This is the way it happens every time, and it leads to isolation. And isolation is the gasoline that turns the flame into an eruption. A tyrant is isolated from the people. Have you noticed the polls? The poll numbers are saying that this administration and the Democratic Party are out of touch with the American people. They are not concentrating on the things the American people are interested in. Why? Because they are isolated. They have self-isolated. They have taken anyone who disagrees with them and removed them from their sphere of influence. Once you isolate yourself, you lose touch with humanity. The people become isolated. And we begin to assume that tyranny is normal and that our suspicions of it are taboo. Isolation through fear, suspicion. It's the fear of getting banned by social media, the fear of getting fired for some dumb joke we made, on social media maybe 10 years ago. We want to leave social media, but we're afraid to get off it, and we're terrified of being kicked off it. This is why the tyrant discourages people from worrying about politics. Tyranny is the escape from politics. Sounds appealing, but it's not. Our political beliefs are more than just feelings or convictions. They are the body and the mind of our personal freedom. At its core, tyranny is the expression of impotence, not weakness, impotence, voicelessness, powerlessness, inability to act. The solution to impotence is the loss of power. It's strength. It's strength, not power. You cannot overcome tyranny by overpowering it. Violence can destroy power, but it can never take its place. And tyranny will always collapse, always, and be replaced with something else. It's why Marxism will never work. You can take away a person's property and their family. You can take away their private life. You can make them powerless. You can make them impotent. But we think of ourselves still as an individual, and we have to think of our nation as a family. We have a shared investment, and I don't care if your little sister was wrong or right or whatever. When my little sister is being beat up, I stand up for my little sister. I stand up for my family members. I stand up for the bully. And if it is a member of my own family that is the bully, I do not stand up for that bully. I stand against that bully. Our nation needs to be a giant neighborhood again, not a commune, not a castle, but a space filled with private properties, connected invisibly by community, by neighbors, by strangers, friends, by people that share citizenship and the same values, and not values like I go to your church, you go to my church. Values that we believe in the sanctity of man, the sanctity of the individual life, and believe that everything is not political. When social power becomes political power, social power can make people think they have an obligation to the majority. When the beauty of democracy is it protects the voiceless and the abandoned. It protects the dissenters. It protects the rebels. That's why we have always been a nation of underdogs. That's why we have always liked the rebels, because they are the voiceless. They are the downtrodden. The tyrants want you to believe that politics is a religious war. But politics isn't war, and politics isn't religion. There's no compromise on the battlefield. There's no compromise with the devil. But politics depends on compromise, not obedience and not submission. There's one thing more important than the majority. And if we can remember this, we will be okay. The one thing more important than the majority is that one lone voice that disagrees with the majority.